Chairperson guidelines. 1. Read the 11th tradition. Okay, where's we got the 11th tradition around here? Okay. Our public relation policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. If anyone here represents a media agency, please contact Mark N. Unity statement. The members of the North Central Indiana area of Narcotics Anonymous, welcome to the 6th annual We Grow with Love convention. We would like to thank you for joining with us in this celebration of recovery. We are deeply grateful to Narcotics Anonymous and find great joy in being able to express our gratitude here with you in our family. In Narcotics Anonymous, we are certain that when we come together to share our lives and our love with each other, a miracle happens. Our recovery takes hard work, courage, and commitment. Those are the things that carry us through as we seek the spiritual growth that comes from working the 12 steps. Never alone. We do this together and for each other, knowing that we need each other because more than anything else, we grow with love. The preface to the basic text begins, the full fruit of labor of the love lives in the harvest, and that always comes in the right season. For us, our season has come. You want to read just for today? Okay, we'll pass on. Okay. Who wants to speak first? Okay. And here we are today. The topic is living the program on a daily basis. And here's Len.
Hi everybody, my name is Len. I'm an addict from Detroit.
Hi, Len.
This topic, living the program on a daily basis, this is something that is, it's just for me, just what I do, how I run my program. I can't come in here and tell anybody, to do this or to do that, because our programs are all a personal way that we do our own recovery, And for me, recovery is and always has been the working and the reworking of the 12 steps, so I try to incorporate the steps in my daily program and in my daily recovery. I was listening earlier at a workshop that Skip was doing, and Skip said in that workshop that a lot of times when he gets up in the morning, he's not working his 12 steps, and it's like that with me on a daily basis, And if I'm left to myself, my own self will is to destruct. I've proved it over and over again, So I've kind of forced myself to get up and start over on a recovery basis immediately when I first get out of the bed. How we'll steal things from people at the meetings. What seems to work for Mike might work for Lynn. So I'll take that and I'll keep it for myself. And I heard a lot of people say first thing in the morning, make contact with their higher power. They'll do things like take their shoes and put them way under the bed, so while they're down there on their knees getting their shoes out, they'll say their prayers or whatever, And I've just made it my habit, that before I'll go to the bathroom in the morning, I'll get on my knees and I'll say my prayers, So it's always the first thing I have to do. You get up, how you have to go in and use the toilet and stuff, So I'll just automatically get on my knees and make my contact, with my higher power, and not to tell anybody else what to do or how to do it, but just for me, living my program, it isn't an I thing for me. It's a we thing, and the I thing turns into a we thing in a couple of different ways for me, and that's where the steps come in. That part of it is step one with me. We can change the I thing into a we thing by giving a friend a call, and now there's two of us, into it, we can write a letter of support, or a note of love to somebody in the fellowship, or just somebody in your family, it might be your spouse, or it might be a sponsee, or something like that, and then right away it's not just me. I'm in contact with somebody else in the fellowship, or I'm doing something that my program tells me to do, and by having another person involved, that's how I get my program started. My mother lives down in Florida, and she gets up about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I get up at 6 o'clock, and she's been a big inspiration to me in my recovery. She always starts her days off with meditation and things, and that's helped me to start my days off that way. Anyway, we have a little thing that we do. I'll get up in the morning and I'll say out loud, I'll say, "Mother, I'm thinking about you and I love you." And she'll get up in the mornings and she'll say, "Lynn, I'm thinking about you and I love you." And it just starts our day off together, on a one person becoming two people, And there's another way, we can do it, that I do it anyway. And I can pray and I can ask God what God wants of me for that day, And by doing that, when I'm listening to God's response back to me, again, I've changed it from just me into two people, me and God, And that's how I start my day off, and that's my step one. Working the program involves action, and I start out by asking for directions on every day. People that know me know I don't just make up things. Anything I ever say at a table, or anything I ever say to a sponsee, anything I ever say in one of the penitentiaries in an H&I meeting or anything like that, is something that I do every single day, And I do a step 3, first thing, every single day when I'm on my knees, I'll turn my life and my will over to the care of my higher power. Ask for his guidance and direction for that day. I'll ask him for knowledge of his will for me that day and the strength to carry that will out, And I do that on a daily basis, because to me, my program requires me to be of service, And then when I'm of service to my God, then I'm of service to myself, It doesn't necessarily have to be anything important, I can just greet somebody at work with a smile. I can say a cheerful word to my boss. I work with the public, and I can just greet people on a friendly basis. And that gets my services towards God. Being a channel. A lot of times all people have knowledge of NA is just what they see of maybe me today. And I try to represent myself in a positive manner. And in a friendly manner. So already I've done my step 1 first thing in the morning. I've done my step 3 first thing in the morning, and already I'm working my steps, and I feel better about myself. I have my daily meditation books that I read each day. I've asked men that I sponsor to read the same books, and I have an office that I work out of, and a number of the men that I sponsor also have offices, so we have access to phones very early in the morning, and we'll call each other. Did you read the book today? Yeah, I did. Well, what did you think of it? Well, that kind of helped me out in this area or that area, And again, the I thing has turned into a we thing. Now there's a couple of us, and I'll probably get 3 phone calls every morning, or make 3 phone calls every morning by 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm very much in contact with my disease, and very much in contact with my recovery to counteract this disease, Service to God, to me, means a contact with him, working on myself that day on my character defects a lot. Into me now, I'm into step 6 and 7 already. You know, I do work with the public, and one of the things I do on my job is I run a recycle center for the local city that I'm employed by, and there's a lot of senior citizens that are very conscious about recycling, and they're in every day because they don't work and they have the opportunity to move around at their leisure, and they'll come in with their milk bottles and their aluminum and wire and just things like that, you know, that you bring to the recycle centers, you know, and I can get very arrogant. Elderly people, they can be a pain in the butt sometimes. I mean, I love them, but they can be a pain in the butt, you know, whether it would be they just don't quite hear as well, or they don't see as well, or they don't maybe understand as well, you know, and I might say something like, well, put it over there in bin number 27. You know, and the bin's half the size of this room, and they're looking around and they're going, where? And I'll say 27. Well, which one is that? You know, and I can get very arrogant. I can say the one with the big 2 and the big 7, and then I hate myself. I literally hate myself for what I've done. You know, so I try to start out in the mornings by working a step 6 and 7. You know, step 6, listing those character defects. Step 7, asking God to remove those shortcomings from us. You know. And I'll ask my higher power. I usually do it with 2 a day, whichever 2 I feel might be relevant for that day, you know. And I might ask him to remove arrogance, and I might ask him to remove self-centeredness, you know. And you know how God will never leave a void in our life, you know. So whatever I ask him to take from me, I ask him to replace something. If I ask him to remove arrogance, I'll ask him to replace it with acceptance. If I ask him to remove self-centeredness, I'll ask him to replace it with God-centeredness, you know. And again, you know, to me, just to this addict, I'm working the steps again, you know. And I'll actually do all these things well before my workday is into effect, you know. Starting time is 7 o'clock, and by 8 o'clock, I'm already up onto a step 7 every single day. But it's what it takes for me. You know, because if I slack off in one area, hell's downhill real fast for me. You know, I don't go just from 0 to 80 in a 1 mile area. You know, I'm there now. You know, so I have to do something right away to put between me and this disease. I'm very afraid of this disease. You know, this disease took my wife away from me, my children away from me, my job away from me, my car away from me, left me laying out in a bar parking lot after they stomped me and broke my arm in 8 places, and that was for starters. That was the nice things that done to me. You know, that was to say nothing about the 30 years of degradation and 30 years of being incapable of caring for myself in any way, you know, or incapable of loving those who were near to me. You know, my children, my mother, father, and things like that, you know. And I'm very afraid of this disease, you know, so I like to put something between that disease and me and work it on a daily basis, you know. When I keep in contact with God on a daily basis, I'm doing like a 10th step and 11th step. I like to be able to stop those little molehills from turning into mountains right away, you know. And if I keep in contact with him early in the day, each day like that, and I made contact with him, you know, I don't have to let resentments build up in my day, and I have some place to go. If I see something that's happening, I know which step to go to change it, to turn it off, you know. And I can take that minute to just step into the restroom in my office area there, or to just grab a cup of coffee from the coffee pot or whatever, you know, and I can ask for a little help in that area. If it's a character defect that I didn't necessarily ask for help with in the morning, and I see it's creeping back in, and maybe a resentment, you know, I can ask for that resentment to be replaced with love. It might be towards a fellow worker, or somebody who's coming in contact with me that has been there from the day before, you know. the little things I steal from other people in the fellowship that have helped me in that area, I can use on a daily basis. I sat at a table with my friend there, Chuck, one day, and Chuck told me, Lenny said, if your day is going bad, he said, you can start it over at any time you want. He said, it can be 8 o'clock at night. And he said, you can start your day at 8 o'clock at night if you want, if you're having a bad day, And I've kept that, and I stole that from Chuck and I use it. If things go bad at 7:30 in the morning, that's when I start my day. That's when I go back to my higher power, and that's when I turn my will and my life back over to him, because I've done something. I've taken that will back, and Lynn is in control again. And when Lynn's in control, I'm in a lot of trouble, So I try to keep on top of that as much as I can. I try to practice the principles of the fellowship and of the program, all day long, and that's my 12th step for me. It's very easy for me to give advice to people, people I sponsor or H&I work that I do or whatever. I'll be in the jail, and I'm leaving there in 30 minutes or I'm leaving there in an hour or whatever. And it's very easy for me to give advice and then go off and go home, But how do I react to those people in my own home, the people that are closest to me? And on the work days, how do I react to those people in my workplace? Those people that aren't in recovery. That boss who maybe was up all night long with a crying child who had a fever. Am I understanding to him, or do I have to snap at him and say, hey, you don't have to holler at me, you SOB or whatever. I'm a human being, and go on and on and on. Or can I take a minute and ask him, Jim, is there something wrong? Is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything you'd like to talk to me about? Can I get you a cup of coffee? How do I treat them people that are closest to me, the ones that are most vulnerable, the ones that is easiest to hurt? When I come home, and my wife's had a hard day, and her boss is giving her a hard way to go, sometimes she just wants me to listen. Or a sponsee will come by the house and talk to me, and they just want me to listen. They don't want my advice, they just want somebody to listen, so I can be a good listener, and I try to start doing that early in the day. If something's going wrong with Mike, I try to listen and let Mike get some of that off his chest. Sometimes we just need to vent, and that's being of service to God, to practice these principles in all of our affairs, And today I try to let go and to let God, And what does God do? God sends me you people. God sends me the voices of each and every one of you people as you come through my day, I couldn't count the times that just about the time that it's getting overwhelming and things are getting fast and things like that another recovering addict will stop by my office, or a sponsee or whatever will stop by the yard just to come in and give me a hug. And that feels so good and helps me so much, And again, it's making that conscious contact early in the day, Whatever works for me today, I'll probably try and do again tomorrow, because if it worked today, it'll probably work for me again tomorrow. I try to keep the program as simple as I can. The first 4 words in our basic text are simplicity is the key. I don't have to complicate things. I know what's good for me. I see what works for me. And I try to repeat it on a daily basis. When people ask me, when's the last time you got on your knees and you asked for God's directions, Len, I can honestly say it was this morning. And when was it the time before that? It was yesterday morning. I try to practice 2 prayers throughout the day. Please and thank you. Please help me with this, Lord. Please help me get through that, Lord. Thank you, Lord. I appreciate it very much. Those are the 2 most profound prayers I've ever said in my life. Please and thank you. So for me, that's what working the program on a daily basis is, And that doesn't make it right and that doesn't make it wrong. It's just what works for me. And if I find something new from somebody in this room today, I'll try that tomorrow. And if it works for me, that will be part of my daily routine. That little thing that my mother and I do, I picked that up off the TV. One of the personalities on TV said that him and his father used to do that. And I thought it sounded pretty nice, and I called my mother and asked her about it. and she said she'd like to do that with me. And now I'll give her a call. You know, we usually call each other on Tuesdays and say hello and ask how everything's going. And she always tells me, I say good morning to you, son, every single morning, and tell you I love you. You know, and that makes me feel so good, you know. So for me, that's what working the program is on a daily basis. Thank you for letting me share today.
Thanks, Lynn.
Oh, hi. I'm an addict. My name's Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Grateful to be here and be able to speak to you today. All right. Living life on a daily basis. Sometimes when you first get in recovery, that's all you can do is try to get through and get clean. I know when I went to treatment, my counselor made me keep a notebook and write down all the things that I did. And basic things like take a bath, brush my teeth, got up, had something to eat. And these basic things were all that I could do when I first got clean because I couldn't do anymore. You know, and by the time I got through my 6 weeks of treatment, the list had gotten long and it filled the page and the page after that because I had learned that there's more that I can do to try to gain an understanding in my life of what I need to do to stay clean today. And to me, staying clean and working the program are the same thing, because if I don't work the program, I do not stay clean. If I don't stay clean, I don't have a life, and that's as simple as it gets for me. I know that I did not like my life when I was using. My life sucked. I used for over 20 years and I almost killed myself. And I don't want to go back there, you know. And I will do whatever it takes to have to stay clean today. And the 12 steps and the 12 traditions and the 12 concepts and the spiritual principles of this program help me do that. And I don't always practice them to the best of my ability, and I don't always work as hard as I should because that's just the way life is, you know. Sometimes I get caught up in other things. But through not working certain steps as hard as I need to, I have learned that I need to work them harder. You know, because learning and being open-minded and honest and willing are the things that help me grow and become a better person. And if I'm a better person, I can deal with people better. And I'm not always perfect at that, and I never will be. But that's okay today, because I have a problem with perfectionism. I strive really hard to do everything to the perfect whatever nth degree that has to be, you know, and I have to learn to let go of a lot of these things. And that's part of my program. It's okay that things aren't absolutely tidy or absolutely perfect or everything's done before I can take a break, you know. I don't have to push myself to the limit anymore. It's okay to just say, I can take it easy, you know. I've learned that that's part of my program, is that I have to make time for me, because I'm an important person too, you know. I give service to my group. I give service to the NA organization. I give and I get. Because if there wasn't somebody there opening the door when I first came in, I don't know if I'd be here today. I wouldn't sure be at this retreat, and I doubt if I'd be alive. But through the grace of my higher power, I don't have to be concerned about that. I can remember, because sometimes that's what helps me stay clean, is when I remember the pain that I went through. I know that I have a chance to improve and learn things, you know. I give Lynn all the credit in the world for getting on his knees every day. I can't say that. But, you know, I do talk to my higher power, and I talk to him all the time. And my sponsor's been working with me real diligently to not just pray, but to have conversations with my God, because that keeps me close to him all the time. And I don't have to feel like it's a special occasion to have a conversation with God. That I can just say, okay, you know, help me, show me what I need to do, help me learn from this experience and guide me in this way. And I know that when I'm willing, and most of the time I have to be beaten to be willing, that I can learn and grow. And for whatever reason that is, I don't know. I'm awful stubborn and I'm bullheaded and I take things to heart. But once I learn something, it stays. And I don't want to have to go back and learn addiction again, because it was very painful. I know that this program has a different message for everybody. And the wonderful part of the book says that you can take what you want and leave the rest. You can learn from everybody else, and your God does not have to be my God. And I'm glad of that. I'm glad that this program can mean different things to everybody else. I've seen many spirited discussions over one passage in the book because everybody is different on their opinions and how they feel, but it means different things, and it's helped everybody over the years. This program is life to me, and without life I couldn't have these things. I couldn't have, the material things that seem like they're so important, but they're really not. The spiritual things are what I really need. The peace and the compassion, the guidance and the love for the other people of this program. I don't know what else I have to say. I know it's not been long enough, but that's okay today. I feel grateful that I'm here. I know that this program can work. I know that surrender on a daily basis helps me stay clean. I have to surrender. It seems like you talked about being in the bathroom, Lynn. That seems to be a place where I do a lot of praying and meditating too. I don't know if it's because it truly is the most private place, or because when I'm taking a bath I really feel exposed, or whatever it is, but that's where I tend to do a lot of my praying and meditating, because I know that there's nothing I can hide behind. I cannot put up any walls. I cannot make believe. I cannot hide behind any faces, because this is just me. Take me as I am. And thankfully God will do that for me. And I know that that's okay today. So thanks everybody for being here. That's all I got.
Thanks, Nancy.
Hi, my name is Frank. I'm an addict.
Hi, Frank.
And before we open the floor for sharing, I need to remind everyone that you are being taped. If you don't wish to be taped, please let me know so that I can turn the machine off.
I'm an addict. My name's Troy.
Hi, Troy.
There we go. Man, I got some things I need to share about. I was planning on going to the other workshop, and I met a couple buddies upstairs that were coming down here. My higher power put me where I needed to be. I need to say that I'm grateful today to have a life to work this program in, and I'm no longer just existing. And it's through living this program on a daily basis and living the principles that you've taught me, that this fellowship has taught me, that I'm able to have experiences like being in this beautiful, beautiful setting with all you people. And this morning I had a really good experience. I never sleep on the Saturday night of a camp out. I'm just too up, and I'm always up all night on Saturday night, hanging out over here or over there. Early this morning, I went in and I was going to take a shower. And there's this $10 bill laying on the shower floor, and I'm like, it was tempting for about 30 seconds. But then I remembered what you taught me. So I did the next right thing. I took it, I put it with a note at the registration table. And proceeded to go about my day. And I made it out to the tower and did my meditation for the day. And I personally can't say that I get on my knees when I'm in contact with my higher power. That's just not how my higher power works. For me, my higher power works by just being out in an open area and just being it's almost like communing with my higher power through nature. And through living this program on a daily basis, I've learned all these things. And when I find myself, coming here and practicing these principles, and living it here, I take it away from here. You taught me that if one of my brothers or sisters, in this fellowship needs help and is reaching out their hand for help, and I have the capability to give the aid needed, that I need to do that. And that's carried with me into my life outside of Narcotics Anonymous. Narcotics Anonymous is with me at all times. you know, whether I'm in a meeting or not. You know, but those principles, you know, help if I can. You know, help a fellow student, somebody at school. You know, and I'm real grateful to be done with my first year of school, because I wasn't making it to as many meetings as I'm used to when I was in school, and now I'm able to do that. But when I was in school, you know, I had that daily contact with my sponsor via the phone line. You know, he's probably sorry he gave me his work number, but you know, today, you know, I have that. I pick up that phone. And that's something that works out well for me, because if I'm used to picking that phone, even if it's just to say, hi, how you doing, how's it going today, you know, I'll be all that more accustomed to picking up that phone when the shit hits the fan. I'm real grateful to be here. You know, take a look around. Look at all these people out here. Look at this place we're in. This is a beautiful place. It's only through this fellowship and our higher powers that we're able to be here today. That's all I've got.
Thanks, Greg.
Hi, I'm Tammy. I'm an addict.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi. First of all, I'm going to apologize for closing my eyes and sitting there going like this because I'm tired, and so I know what I need to do on a daily basis is get some rest sometimes when I think that I need to keep going. But I've been in the program for a couple years, and I feel like I've started over. These last 5 months of my recovery have been very intense for me, and big learning growth experiences. And I've done living my life on a daily basis with knowing that I've got to come first, and I'm sure almost everyone can identify that we want everyone to love us and care about us, and we want to belong, and so therefore we put ourselves out on a limb just to do that. And in my life, and especially, you know, before the addiction and in the addiction, I would, for the sake of your love or your approval, put you first, and then me last. And that's what I've done in my recovery. I've put the kids first because I love them so desperately, knowing that my recovery comes first, otherwise I can't be a mom, you know. But it just didn't sink in. And then, you know, the relationship thing, and God, if I don't do this or don't do that, he's not going to respond the way I want him to. And so I put that first, and boy, did I really make a mistake with that. That relationship thing really was the worst thing. And I learned from that, and I learned I can't do that. I've got to come first. And as far as the daily basis goes, I've got to come first. Today was a big hard thing for me because I'm a female, and I like to look pretty. You know, it's an important thing to me. And I've got to realize that the masks and all that stuff's got to go, and what's inside has got to come out. And it's really funny because I did this because I wanted to do this for me. I wanted to just make sure the makeup's off and the hair is wild or crazy or in a ponytail. It's just not, you know, curled this way. And I did, and people in my own group didn't even know who I was. My own sponsor was like, "Is that you?" She's sitting over there. She's like, "I didn't even know it was you." And so I'm scaring people. I don't care. This is it. My heart's glowing. My heart is glowing. So on a daily basis, I pray. I really, really do. And I went through a bad week about a week ago, and lo and behold, I get depression. I do. I really do. And this wasn't the PMS, and this wasn't the relationship, and this wasn't because of this. It was because I was chemically inside depressed. And, you know, I didn't pray. Until the day came Wednesday when I was in the shower, and all of a sudden this Wild Irish Rose bottle just popped in my head, and the thought of going, to drink this bottle and the ice and a whole business, and my disease took over, and I was ready to get out of the shower so exhausted. That's depression. That we're talking about bathrooms. I got right on my knees in front of the toilet and the floor that neither myself or my roommate had cleaned, and I didn't care. And just prayed, please God, keep me clean. Or not keep me clean, please God, don't let me go anywhere. I want to go use, but I know that I don't. I know that I don't. My disease does. And you know what? The next thing I know, I was on the phone with my mother. So I know what I need to do on a daily basis to stay clean is exactly what this program says to do, and then about 50% more. Because I can't just do what it says to do. I'm an addict, and when I'm an addict, I'm going to do as much as I can and more to get them drugs. But I know, and it's been said, I know I've got to do more for me to stay clean, because I get lazy. I get busy, I get caught up, and I blame it on a lot of things. I've got a new job and I want this, or I've got to do what I got to do for me to stay clean. And I took the mask off, I took the makeup off, I took the hair off, and I left it alone. And it's not about camping or anything else. It's just about the fact that I want to be able to look people in the eye and feel their souls, and I want them to feel mine. Because that blonde thing, I don't want that anymore. I just don't want to be known like that. And if I'm going to be laughing loud, it's because I'm laughing loud. It's, I'm goofy. I just can be that way. To stay clean is to laugh a lot. And the feelings thing we heard earlier today, it's true. When you're feeling this, you're just feeling it. It's not because of this, that, or the other. And when you are feeling those things, and you are feeling them because this, that, or the other, we know we can do something to get through it. And we don't have to use. And that's what I learned last 2 weeks ago. I've gone through my second time without having to relapse. And it has a lot to do with this group that I'm involved in. This is my home group, I think. These people that helped me and gave me this trip to get here, they chose to pass on a trip, and they passed it on to me, and I'm honored, and I'm very lucky. And I'm done.
Hi family, my name's Kevin, I'm an addict. I don't know, I believe I'm doing this first off. I'm not one for talking in front of people. Whoa.
Careful, dude. Happens to a lot of people.
I've been around here not that long, but I've been in recovery just for a few months now. I stayed clean for the first 18 months, just stayed clean. Didn't do much. I did a lot of the things I thought I needed to do, but I really didn't work the program like I should have. I was the GSR for my home group. I did the helpline, do H&I. All that stuff's fine. It kept me clean, but I really didn't grow, and I wasn't in recovery. I didn't work the program like I should. And recently I made some decisions. The first decision was to look for a sponsor that I knew would really help me in the areas I needed to, and that was being the spiritual part of this program. Because that, for me was really something that was like the God thing, flipped me out. I'm like, I can't handle this. And today I found out I can handle it, and I'm really glad I am getting into it. It's I'm one of the people that calls in the morning at 7 o'clock, and it's a good thing. And it's tough working it on a daily basis. With me, I used real hard and heavy for a lot of years, and so I got to work real hard and heavy on my recovery. Staying clean isn't enough for me. It really is. I found that out. It took me a little while to find that out. Staying clean is not enough. I can see my character defects in other people that I run with, and I got to watch myself and try to catch that stuff, and I got to do it on a daily basis, and it's really tough because I want to change Kevin. I don't want to be that person I used to be, and the only way to do that is not just staying clean, it's by working the steps. And I'm finding this out now. I've heard it and listened to it and just nodded my head when people would talk all this stuff, I guess, yeah, that sounds good, But it's the truth, I look at people that have that work the steps, and I see how much they've grown, and they might have less clean time than I do. And I see that they're further ahead because they're working it on a daily basis, and they got the higher power thing going on, things like that. And I'm thinking, this is what I want. I see people with clean time. Last night, the countdown, man, I love that stuff. That's great. We brought somebody with us this year, and this was their first convention. He's like, "What's this countdown all about?" I said, "Wait, you'll love this." And as soon as I got with him last night, I says, "That was really cool." And he was like, "That's just neat." And they're having a good time. Tammy, I'm glad you made it.
Thanks, Gavin.
It's just something, a conscious contact with your higher power. For me, that was real hard to do, and this was a suggestion by my sponsor, was to get this, what would Jesus do bracelet, and I put it on, and I haven't took it off since then, and it helps me a lot because I have a hard time just remembering to do that. I'm not the one to get down on my knees yet, but I do it every morning. I read my meditation books, and people have noticed change in me, and the big person is my mother, which really flips her out when I'll say something like, God willing, just something that simple, and she'll look. And that's a good thing, it really is, my life is going great today, there's days when, my wife don't wife like she should, and the dogs don't dog like they should, my employees don't employ like they should, but that's okay, I know how to handle it today, that's fine, it's the next day my wife's, and I'm sure I don't husband like I should, that's for sure, so, that's okay too. But I'm getting better, this was a good thing. I brought my wife, she's not in recovery. Yeah, I guess she is because she hangs out with me all the time, but, we've had a real nice time so far. We did some quiet time by ourselves. I took my meditation books and we read out loud to each other, and it's cool. It really is cool. And some people can look at me, and I like to ride my bike. I'm not a biker, I'm a motorcyclist, and, people give, it's just that look, people sometimes give you, not so much here, but when you go outside with people, we'll walk into a restaurant, everybody go, uh-oh. We just went to the Amish Acres. Boy, you should have seen the looks we got there. But that's okay too, because I know where we really are. We're a bunch of people in recovery that like to have a good time, and that's something that we enjoy to do, and that's okay. I don't have a lot more to say. I'm just really glad that I took the opportunity to come up here because I do feel a lot better now. And thanks.
Hi everybody, my name's Abel, I'm an addict. Living the program on a daily basis. One of the things that I've learned to do in recovery is appreciate recovery. I didn't really understand what I was missing until after I had been clean for several months. Some of the simple things that I appreciate, and maybe none of you in here can appreciate this, but my wife don't have to hide a pocketbook, my mom don't ask me, did I make any stops on the way over there? Simple things like that. But the bigger things that I appreciate is that I'm not tense. I'm not looking over my shoulder. I'm not, I've learned to trust people more. And the thing that has affected this particular addict is just accepting the fact that I'm still an addict. It was kind of, the first time I got out of treatment, I came home and I was a 90-day wonder, and I was expecting things to be different. And people that I had ripped off was automatically going to start trusting me and all those kinds of things. And it just didn't happen like that. And also my life, I was expecting to be different. And I tended to forget that I was an addict, and I'd wander by the same places and do this and do that, and before you know it, I had relapsed. And so this trip, I've learned to accept the fact that I am an addict, and I live my life on a daily basis with that key principle in mind. I'm not I say this, my name is Abel, and I say this to myself, and I am a recovering addict, and I have to constantly remind myself of that. And my recovery has now become a bigger part of me is the fact that I'm black. I'm a black recovering addict. I always got to remember that. Certain things I can't change. I can't wash this off, and I can't erase the fact that I'm an addict. And so living it on a daily basis for me is just walking in the light of the fact of who I am, understanding that I have to be careful, and mostly that I'm not walking this trip by myself. The most important thing for me is the strength that I find in my relationship with my higher power, and also the strength that I find in you people and meeting in these rooms. That for me is those things I couldn't do. I couldn't have done it without you and without my higher power. I take opportunities. I have a somewhat long drive to work. I drive almost an hour every day one way to work. So for me, it's a good opportunity to get in touch with my higher power, to listen to encouraging things, radio, or listening to speaker tapes. It's a kind of a thing that allows me to reflect on the day ahead of me, or on the hour trip from work, the day behind me. What are some of the things that happened today that were signs of my addiction coming out? Because my addiction comes out in a lot of different ways. My selfishness, my single-mindedness, things got to go my way or no way, and it's really, really easy for me to slip into that kind of a mindset. I have a department that I'm in charge of that, it's like my dope. It's mine, and when I got it, I decide, what happens, and you got to jump to my music, and there's my addiction going at it again. It's so crazy, man, and so on the way home, I use opportunities on the way home to say, hey, man, there you were again. Look at you again. My day comes before me in like a little picture, and I just play it in front of me, and I say to myself, well, there's an area, where my addiction spoke out loud. And I stop and I ask the God of my understanding to help me and forgive me for walking across the line in that way. And it's just, for me, it's refreshing. So when I finally reach home, I've dealt with my day, and I don't have to take it out on my wife, my dog, and my children. And so living the program on a daily basis for me is just the principles of the program. They say in our program our principles are spiritual, and they really are, and it helps me to make these a guiding lights, not only as far as NA goes, but it also helps me make it a guiding light in my other relationships outside of NA. But as far as I'm concerned, there are no relationships, outside of NA, because I don't have any. I mean, I'm an addict, so everything for me is NA related. Because you may not be an addict, but I am, and I'm always going back to ground center, which is my recovery. So I relate to people, hopefully, in a way that I want them to relate to me. And I like to practice the principles of NA in all my affairs. There's a tendency, for example, for me to cheat a lot on, my expense account. you know? And I come back to the fact that I want to practice these principles in all my affairs, and including my business affairs. And it's real easy to cheat for me. It's real easy. And as my old addict self, where I'm not going to buy dope with it, but it's still for Abel, it's still for me. I'm taking away from somebody else, and you know, my boss may not know, you know, that I didn't drive 155 miles. I only drove 125 miles, but you know, when I get so many cents per mile and I put it down on a piece of paper, it comes into my pocket, just like it did when I was buying dope, you know. And so practicing the principles of the program in all aspects of my life is a way that I try to walk the program every day. And I'm not telling you, I'm not standing up here saying that I'm a model 10, 8 principles, 12 steps all day, because that would be a bold-faced lie. But I try to be, you know, cognizant in many ways, you know, where I go astray, and I rely on other people in NA to call me when they spot some things. And I'll be in touch with my sponsor on the phone a lot, you know, and I just try to interact with people, and I try to accept, you know, the guiding principles as they see them, and move on with life. But as far as this program goes, I mean, on a daily basis, I guess I have to say it's almost like my lifeline. You know, without this program, I could easily go back to using, because I struggle with using thoughts, romancing the high on a daily basis. You know, I've talked to many people who say that, you know, they don't have these things anymore. You know, that their higher power has removed this from them. Well, mine has chosen not to remove it from me. I struggle. I had a using thought just 5 minutes before I got up here. I mean, a very powerful using thought. And so usually, I have to learn, not usually, but always I have to cope with that. I have to deal with it immediately. I can't just put it off and not deal with it, because if I don't put it off, if I put it off, what'll happen is another one will come, and then the sequencing will be closer together and closer together, and before you know it, if I don't control it, I can be walking this out and picking up again. And so this program for me, living this program on a daily basis, has got to also include being able to control my thoughts. And the only person that can help me control my thoughts is my higher power. So I give the using thoughts and romancing highs to him. And he's given me the concepts through NA to be able to push the tape, that play tape ahead, that fast forward it to the despair, no bath in a week, hungry, my wife not wanting me anymore, the people talking about me. I have to go to that part, because my disease does not want to park there. My disease wants to park on the quote-unquote good parts, and there are no good parts to using, but as I was coming over here today, I was talking to my sponsor about some of the places that my disease stops, and it stops at, the using, the point of using. That's where my disease wants to stop. Remember that, Abel? And now, you got nearly 2 years of sobriety now, man. Go and get you some dope. And it'll present things to me that'll make it real easy. The money in my pocket, or the proximity to a dope house that I used to frequent, whatever. It'll use any of that. And I got to quickly grab the tape and push it forward, because if I don't, my life will stop right in front of the dope house. And God has given me this opportunity at recovery. Yet another. But I don't have no written guarantee of another opportunity. I know I can pick up in a split second, but I don't have no guarantee of another recovery. And so my life could end at the time I pick up. So for me, living the program on a daily basis, including corralling all of these negative thoughts and all of these stinking thinking type of things that are reminiscent of the days when I was really using. Because for 25 years I was an addict. My disease told me I wasn't an addict. I was just a recreational user, you know. I had fun. Didn't you have fun? No, I didn't have fun. There was no fun. But I was a recreational user. But I wasn't a recreational user. I was an addict. You know, and I didn't know it. And it was once I came into the grips with who I was, now I had to learn how to live my life, you know, with respect to that difficult reality that I was an addict, that I wasn't a recreational user. You know, once I found out that there was a whole bunch of things that could fit in a crack pipe, I was surprised. Crack pipe that big, I could put a house in it, several jobs fit in, no problem. They didn't get stuck on the side or nothing. It slid right down the pipe. You know, I mean, I can't believe that. 3 cars right down the middle of the pipe. I mean, God has blessed me with an education. I have 2 master's degrees, and you know something? If that didn't mean squat in my disease, here, just throw them down here too while you're at it. And so living my life on a daily basis also meant understanding what my higher power has given to me, and I'm trying to have an attitude of gratitude, you know, and using does not demonstrate any gratitude to my higher power. You know, just throwing away the gift that he's given me, and I'm just frivolous, you know, kicking it around. And so, being grateful for little things, you know, having a grateful attitude when my children come up to me and say, Daddy, you want to hear something? You know, my response has been in the past, come on now, go tell it to your mother, I'm busy. You know, but my attitude now is, yes, son. I have 2 children, a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. And I try to take time with them. So living my life, my recovery on a daily basis is including all these good things in my life that I used to just dismiss. You know, my children and my wife came second. Feeding my disease always came first. And so I've learned to be more responsible with just everything. My whole life, my funds and everything. So the tension is always here. Releasing the tension for me is getting in touch with my higher power and talking to you people here at meetings or calling my sponsor on the phone. And just, man, it helps me. It helps me to see someone else come into the fellowship. I mean, last night, it was wonderful that fellow stood up with 18 years of sobriety. But you know when I broke into tears? When that young man with 1 day stood up. I couldn't hold it back. You know, God is so good that, you know, this guy walked on his own and said, I'm going to give this a try. And I was so grateful that, you know, that here's a young man had an opportunity to take a look at sobriety and staying clean. And so that broke me up, you know, and I really appreciate 18 years is a huge milestone. But for me, the 1 day is the first step of a 1,000-mile journey. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you very much.
My name's Mike, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, everybody. Living the program on a daily basis, I've really been struggling with it for the last 2 months because I've been having a lot of feelings for the last 2 months, and I don't like that, you know. And I've been having a hard time not masking them, you know.
there's a lot of behaviors that I have that have nothing to do with drugs that I use to mask pain. And I don't practice any of them. Well, maybe watching TV, but you know, I don't gamble anymore. I don't use people anymore. I don't sleep all day anymore. And that was something that I did last night. You know, I slept through the speaker because last night was an anniversary of sorts. It was the 4th Saturday of the month. And that's when 2 months ago a relationship ended. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, which is something that I don't do a whole lot. I was talking, this is a person that I've known for a couple of years, and talked to them more than on a superficial level, you know, because that's all. Ever since I've known her, we've just, hi, how you doing, how's the job? And I was talking about the way that I grew up and things that happened to me and why I have to do things different today. You know, because it's all involved, you know, since the time I was 5 years old. And she asked me if I had ever been to any counseling for it. And I says, well, yeah, you know, I went to counseling, you know, I talked to my counselor about it, but I was very disconnected. I can talk about it, disconnected, you know, like I'm telling someone else's story. I have no feeling involved in it. And apparently there was more feeling than I thought, because it wasn't 20 minutes after I talked to her, I felt really bad. And my normal thing would be to go talk to other addicts. And it's like I have spent so much time in the last 2 months talking to other addicts about, you know, these things that are going on with me and what I'm trying to do, and it's like I feel bad. You know, it's like, man, they're getting tired of hearing it. I even had one person last week, I was talking to him, and he's one I talk to a lot, and he's like, man, you know, you need to quit obsessing on this. And I was like, okay, you tell me how, because I've worked the first step on it, I've worked the second step on it, I've worked the third step on it, and I've worked the 4th and 5th step on it. You know, what more can I do? You know, and I pray about it daily. And it's just a matter of, it's going to take me time. But, you know, I get tired of talking about it. And that's something that I need to keep doing. And it's like I feel sorry for my friends, because I know they're getting tired of hearing about it, you know. But it changes. You know, it changes because I'm going through this process. But something happened to me Monday. I came home and someone had broken into my apartment and taken several things. And right after I got home, you know, I'm sitting waiting for the cops to show up, and a guy shows up to see my downstairs neighbor, and no one was home, and he comes around to the side door, and you know, I go down and open the door, and he's telling me who he is, and you know, I came to see this guy. Have you seen him? No, he's not home. And he proceeded to tell me who he was, and he gave me a business card, and he showed me his ID, and he says, man, my wife is on the other side of Detroit. She's having a baby. I don't have any money. And I gave him $20 for gas, and I told him, because these people that stole all my stuff, my wallet was laying right there, and they didn't see it. Well, they didn't see it, they didn't look in it. And I handed him the $20. This is, to tell you the truth, man, by all rights, I shouldn't have this money. So if you don't bring it back, it ain't no big deal. You know, because it should have got stolen with the rest of my stuff. He goes, no, don't worry, I'll bring it back. But you know, that felt good. That felt really good, because normally I would say, oh man, I don't know what to tell you. Somebody just stole all my shit. I ain't got no money. But I did, you know. And I was able to to give it to him. And I didn't do that so I could tell all my friends, because this is the first time I said anything about it. You know, but it was something that was important to me. You know, and that's something that the programs taught me. You know, the man needed to get to see his baby born. You know. But, you know, I was in this program before, and I spent very little time living the program. I spent a lot of time doing everything else. And I used all those things that I talked about. I used my relationship. You know, I was married. I gambled a lot, you know. I acted out on all sorts of behaviors, you know. I was dishonest. And I used. And I don't want to do that today. You know, I have a sponsor. I pray on a daily basis. The last 2 months I've prayed on an almost hourly basis. And that's part of it, you know. I got to thinking about that, the obsession. It's like now, when I start thinking about it, I tell myself, conscious contact with God, conscious contact with God, conscious contact with God. And I pray. But I get tired of praying too. It's like I'm starting to think that I'm bugging God too much. But I can't bug my higher power too much. But what did I say? Working steps. I have a sponsor. I read on a daily basis. I go to meetings and I talk to other people besides my sponsor, you know, who are recovering addicts. And I have a question now that I ask myself before I act out on anything. How will this enhance my recovery? How will this enhance my... If it won't enhance my recovery, I shouldn't be doing it. You know? And that keeps me out of a hell of a lot of trouble. You know? Because there's a lot of things that will not enhance my recovery in any shape, form, and will actually harm my recovery a great deal. And then with that, I think that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Vicki, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Becky.
And Vicky.
It's such a trip to be here this year. On the drive up here and a lot during this weekend, I was thinking about when I was here last year just for Sunday. Came up here last year, I had 5 days clean, and I was so shaky. And I'm looking at the differences between this year and last year. The growth, and most of that growth is through the love that I've received in this program, the fact that people in this program helped me to believe in myself because they believed in me. And I could look at them and say, this person did it, this person's been through this, this, and this, and worse than I have, and they've made it so that I can make it. So I'm really, really grateful to be here. I want to share really briefly something that happened with me last night. I was out back here by myself behind the lodge and listened to the wind. I love the sound of the wind. To me, that's God talking to me. And I was just spending some time with him. And I started to head back to my cabin because I had something to do, and then it was like, no, I couldn't leave. You know, I couldn't leave the spot. I was having just this wonderful moment with God. And I was just reaching out to him and thinking about how much I loved him, you know, and it was like this, just these feelings just came up, and I was just letting them happen. And I was trying to tell him what he means to me, and I remember these words just came up out of my heart. I said, I thirst for you. I thirst for you. And this drop of rain fell on my lips, you know, and it was like, okay, that's not a coincidence. That's my God. That's my God. About 5-6 years ago, I rediscovered God.
through the process of Christianity. And there was like this wonderful romance, there was this wonderful uplifting time, and all of a sudden I have God, I don't need the meetings anymore. So for about a year I stayed clean. And then we all know what happened, it's like I relapsed. I mean, God is number one, but I wasn't using this tool that He had given me, so I was like that woman on the roof in the flood, God sends a boat, God sends a helicopter, but she's waiting for this miracle, When it comes to working this program in my daily life, it comes down to things as simple as caring about myself. It comes down to things as simple for me as getting enough rest. It comes down to every day reminding myself I'm an addict. Every day, one way or the other, staying in touch with someone in recovery so I don't forget, because I can forget real quick when things start going well. It comes down to not wanting to go through that bullshit anymore, not wanting to kill myself anymore, and I mean kill myself spiritually, because I never died out there physically, which a lot of times I felt would have been a blessing. Like I said, it just comes down to caring enough about myself to do some work, to listen to my sponsor when she tells me to try something that I'm like, well, that's crazy, that's not going to work for me. But to have a little bit of open-mindedness to trust somebody who's got more time than I do in the program, and to do what they think I need to do, to at least give it a shot. I'm just really, really grateful for this program. It's given me so much more than just the chance to not use again. It's given me a lot of joy. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Frank Manatic. And, I've had some kind of rough times happen for me in the last few months. I know that, it seems that when I'm ready to work through something, all of a sudden an opportunity will come into my life to work through it, and I hadn't worked on some of my relationships in quite a while, and this person came into my life that I had a past relationship with, and I was helping this person come to meetings, and it was still very difficult for me to express, my feelings in this area. But I know that my higher power works in my life today, because that this person was able to find their way into a treatment facility, and I can only sit back and hope and pray that she finds a way to have some clean time in her life and work a program. For me, it seems that there are many things that I've done in the past to live the program in my life, and it's very difficult for me to do things in repetition. I'll get going doing something, and then it'll fade away, and then I get going doing something else, and it'll fade away. I used to read my Just for Today book every day, and then that faded away, and it sits there, and I read it probably once a month. And for a while there, I was doing about 4 or 5 meetings a week, and that faded away. And I was wrapped up in service commitments and being a GSR, and that too faded away. And it seems sometimes a constant battle for me to combat my addiction and totally arrest it. And the biggest thing that I can do is to not give up, and to still keep coming back, and know that keep looking at other people that that have done it before me and that are doing it right next to me, you know, and that gives me the strength and hope, you know, to live another day clean. And you know, with that in mind, I think it's time to close this workshop. And it says here, end the workshop on time and close with a group hug and serenity prayer. So let's do that. Well, we can
Farmers figure C.
do a oblong thing here. Hey, we're all standing holding arms, so this constitutes sort of a circle. So we can have a few moments of breath to relate to the still suffering act that stand in front of us and in and out of the fellowship, followed by the reversion of the serenity prayer. God.
Grant us serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today. Keep coming back. It works. Once we live it, please. Please.
This is Sharita. Hi, Jeannie. Hi,
And you too, I'm glad to meet your sponsor. Very special lady indeed. Absolutely. Try not how you have to swim. And I got that. There's that oh, you guys have to tear it off. Yes.
All the people better than this.
Say it and it's like, again, I'm not alone.
It's crazy.
I haven't for a while.
Well, I was listening to Grace. I gotta get her down there.
Cheever.
Oh, man.
It's time to go outside and go nuts.
Yes.
It's a short trip. Rosie birthday is a short. Yeah. No, we are. Where?
No, is that
I don't know if he's got a job. Yeah. No, first time I ever started working on it. What do you ask
I haven't done anything. I know I got it advanced, you know what I've got.
Is that Jason?
I think it was a promotional
It's in Canada. That was pretty inspiring, her first.
You guys stay together and we're.
Yeah, we're
Okay. And he's no.
So when you get out, we have to wear that bracelet?
No. Hey, thank you, Sharon.
Thank you for sharing your vote.
Appreciate it.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. You mentioned you say that. You
Everybody's so relaxed and laid back here. That, maybe they just don't
Keep coming back.
Sure.
Now you're talking. There you go. I'm going all around.
We had a nice traffic meeting this past week.
I just looked and there goes the boat.
Really? I don't have too many more out of town. So I have to go regular like this.
And not Karen, and then
1 minute.
almost at
It's
the
nice.
I'm just carried on, just letting it go.
Yeah, I had a good time too.
And his wife, his significant other, was here tonight. Jimmy.
No, Robert.
His name is Kermit.
He lives now.
I really do.
And Abe was gonna ask.
For some reason, I
Well,
didn't
him,
think
they
about
want
it.
to get off on it.
11:30.
And he lives
You know, I didn't go to the meditation, then
and
after
his cabin.
breakfast, I went and laid down, and I laid down till
He lives on a place called,
I had to get in touch. I had to do that. So I'm good now.
it's right where 696
In 93 again. That's the mic, that's the microphone? A little tiny thing.
I know 698, 690 ends there. When I start thinking, it goes on top of bed longer.
I think
It
he's.
goes on for 10 mile. It's 10 mile grass, I was there. That's 10 mile grass.
Hey!
I know I get it.
I know exactly where Temple Grass is.
And there's a total safe gas station in the corner there, you know.
There is a total gas station in Temple Grass.
Okay, and he lives about 2 blocks over off of that road that goes across the highway. They just got finished tearing the bridge up and half of it, and then they're doing construction work on the corner. Yeah, I've seen about there, and they're doing construction work on the corner. On one lane, on this second.